I am Heather, 28 years old, and until last month, I thought I knew what family meant. After Dad died, I moved back home to support Mom through her grief. Instead, I watched her transform under the influence of Walter, her new husband, and Jessica, his entitled daughter. I never imagined my own mother would throw scalding soup in my face for refusing to hand over my car keys to my stepsister. But that moment changed everything. If you are watching this right now, please let me know where you are viewing from. Hit that like button and subscribe to follow my journey of reclaiming my life and dignity. Growing up, our home was filled with laughter and genuine love. My dad, Michael, was my hero, a civil engineer with a passion for teaching me about everything from building structures to managing finances. My mom, Linda, was once a warm, independent woman who balanced her career as a high school teacher with being an attentive parent. They created a stable, loving environment where I learned the value of hard work, responsibility, and compassion. When Dad was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer 3 years ago, our world shattered. The illness progressed rapidly, and within 6 months he was gone. The loss devastated us both. Mom fell into a deep depression, barely able to function, while I tried to hold everything together despite my own grief. I would come home from work to find her still in pajamas, curtains drawn, surrounded by unwashed dishes and unpaid bills. I had built a solid life for myself by then. After graduating with a finance degree from Northwestern, I secured a position as a financial analyst at a respected firm in Chicago. My career was taking off with a recent promotion and praise from senior management. I had my own apartment downtown, a growing investment portfolio, and the independence I had worked so hard to achieve. But family comes first. When I saw Mom struggling, I made the decision to temporarily move back to my childhood home in the suburbs. The plan was to help her through the worst of her grief, get her back on her feet, and then return to my own life. I arranged to work remotely 3 days a week, commuting to the office for the other 2. It was challenging to balance everything, but Mom needed me, and I could not turn my back on her. For the first year after Dad died, it was just the 2 of us healing together. We would share memories of Dad over dinner, cry together on difficult days, and slowly begin to find a new normal. I helped Mom organize the finances, encouraged her to return to teaching part-time, and celebrated small victories when she began to engage with life again. Then Walter entered the picture. Mom met him at a grief support group, though I later discovered he had only attended a few sessions. Within weeks, he was constantly at our house. Within months, Mom was talking about love and second chances. 8 months after meeting him, she announced they were getting married. Everything happened so fast. I barely had time to process my concerns before Walter moved in, bringing his 21-year-old daughter Jessica with him. Walter presented himself as a successful business consultant, though I never saw evidence of actual clients. Jessica was taking what she called a gap year from college, though it seemed more like an indefinite vacation from responsibility. I tried to be supportive. Mom smiled more with Walter around, and I hoped that perhaps this new family would help her heal. I welcomed them both, offering to help Jessica settle in and inviting them to family dinners where I cooked and tried to build connections. The warning signs appeared almost immediately, but in subtle ways I initially dismissed. Walter casually mentioned how his ex-wife had rinsed him financially. Jessica commented on my Tesla Model 3, which I had saved for years to purchase, asking when she could drive it as if it were a shared family vehicle. Mom began deferring to Walter on decisions she would have made independently before checking with him before making even small purchases. My car was my pride and joy. After years of taking public transportation and driving a used Honda with 200,000 miles on it, I had finally saved enough for a down payment on my dream car. With an excellent credit score I had built since college, I secured favorable financing. The sleek black Tesla represented years of discipline and hard work. Jessica, however, saw it differently. Within a week of moving in, she asked to borrow it to go shopping. When I hesitated, Walter chimed in, "Family shares, right, Linda?" And Mom nodded, looking at me expectantly. My credit was another achievement I guarded carefully. I maintained multiple cards with high limits, but low utilization rates, using them strategically to maximize rewards while never carrying a balance. My financial discipline was something Dad had instilled in me, and I took pride in my perfect payment history and growing credit score. As the weeks passed, the pressure from Walter and Mom intensified. "Jessica feels like you do not see her as family when you refuse to share," Mom said one evening. Walter added, In our household, we believe in generosity and supporting each other. The implication was clear: my boundaries made me selfish, not a team player in this new family unit. I tried to explain that sharing did not mean giving up ownership or control, that reasonable boundaries were healthy, but each time my words were twisted to make me seem petty or unwelcoming. Slowly, I watched my mother transform from the woman who had taught me to stand up for myself into someone who expected me to acquiesce to every demand from her new family. The dynamic was shifting beneath my feet, and I felt increasingly like an outsider in what had once been my safe haven. What I did not realize then was how quickly things would escalate, from uncomfortable to dangerous, from pressure to outright theft, from manipulation to violence. The stage was being set for a confrontation that would ultimately force me to choose between my self-respect and my relationship with my mother. The first major incident occurred about 2 months after Walter and Jessica moved in. I had reluctantly allowed Jessica to borrow my Tesla to drive to a job interview, believing it was important to support her potential step toward independence. When she returned 6 hours later, there was a long scratch along the passenger side door and a dent in the front bumper. "What happened to my car?" I asked, running my fingers along the damage that would clearly cost hundreds, if not thousands, to repair. Jessica shrugged, tossing my keys onto the kitchen counter. "It was just a scratch. Some jerk in a parking lot probably hit it with their door. Not my fault." When I pointed out the additional dent in the front, she rolled her eyes. "That might have been there before. You probably just never noticed it." I knew my car had been in perfect condition. I detailed it myself every weekend, a ritual that connected me to memories of working on cars with my dad. The dismissive way Jessica handled the situation stung, but what hurt more was my mother's reaction when I brought it up at dinner. "Accidents happen," Heather, Mom, said, avoiding my eyes. Jessica said she was careful. "We can help with the repair costs," but the subject was quickly changed and the money never materialized. Walter added his own perspective. "Cars are meant to be driven. They get scratches. It seems like you care more about your possessions than about making your sister feel welcome." Sister. The word felt forced, artificial. Jessica was not my sister. We shared no history, no bond, no mutual respect. Yet suddenly I was expected to treat her as family, while she treated my belongings with complete disregard. The incidents multiplied. I would come home to find Jessica wearing my designer sweater, the one Mom and Dad had given me for my college graduation. When I confronted her, she claimed Linda said I could borrow it. Mom neither confirmed nor denied this, simply saying, "You have so many nice clothes, Heather. Can you not share a few things?" My expensive skincare products began disappearing from my bathroom. My favorite perfume half empty when it had been nearly full. A pair of gold earrings gone from my jewelry box, only to appear on Jessica's ears at dinner. Each time I raised concerns, the response was the same. I was being materialistic, unwelcoming, selfish. One Saturday morning, I woke to find my bedroom door ajar, though I distinctly remembered closing it the night before. A quick check of my wallet revealed my primary credit card was missing. Rushing downstairs, I found Jessica and Mom preparing to leave for a shopping trip. "Did you take my credit card?" I asked Jessica directly. She pulled it from her purse without hesitation or shame. "I was going to ask, but you were asleep. We are just going to the mall. I will bring it right back." When I took the card from her hand, Mom looked disappointed in me. "Jessica just needs a few things for school. I told her it would be okay. I would have paid you back." "That is not the point, Mom. Taking my credit card without permission is theft." Walter entered the kitchen, immediately assessing the situation. Now theft is a strong word to use against family. "Jessica made a mistake in not waiting to ask, but your reaction seems extreme." The betrayal cut deep. Not the entitled behavior from Jessica, which I was coming to expect, but my mother's willingness to enable it to prioritize Jessica's wants over my clear boundaries. The woman who had once grounded me for borrowing her lipstick without asking was now defending someone who had attempted to use my credit card fraudulently. That afternoon, I purchased a keyed deadbolt for my bedroom door and installed it myself. When Walter saw it, his face darkened, but he said nothing directly to me. Later, I overheard him telling my mother, "She clearly does not trust us. Is that the kind of household you want, Linda, where family members lock each other out?" The atmosphere at home grew increasingly tense. Meals became battlegrounds of passive-aggressive comments and uncomfortable silences. Walter would praise Jessica effusively for the smallest achievements, while pointedly ignoring my work accomplishments. Mom would jump to change the subject whenever I tried to establish clear boundaries about my belongings. I began documenting everything. Each incident, each item taken or damaged, each dollar not repaid. I created a spreadsheet tracking the financial impact of living with Walter and Jessica. The car repair alone had cost $1,200, which I had paid entirely myself despite the promises of help. Add to that the missing clothes, makeup, jewelry, and the attempted credit card use, and the total was approaching $3,000 in just 3 months. But the real cost was emotional. I watched my relationship with my mother erode daily, replaced by walking on eggshells and swallowing my true feelings to keep the peace. The home that had once been my sanctuary now felt like hostile territory, and I was increasingly the outsider. Still, I stayed partly out of concern for Mom, partly out of loyalty to the memory of our family, and partly because I still hoped things might improve if I just tried harder to make this blended family work. I did not yet know that the financial and emotional costs would soon escalate dramatically, or that the documents I would discover would change everything I thought I knew about my current living situation and my father's final wishes. Despite the new lock on my bedroom door, I returned home from work one day to find subtle signs that someone had been in my room. Nothing was obviously missing, but items on my desk were slightly rearranged and my closet door was ajar when I always kept it closed. The intrusion felt violating, but what concerned me more was how they had gotten past the deadbolt. A closer inspection revealed scratches around the keyhole. Someone had picked or forced the lock. My sanctuary had been breached, and the message was clear in this house. I had no right to privacy. As I reorganized my desk, I noticed my filing box had been disturbed. Inside, mixed among my tax documents and insurance papers, I found something unexpected: property deeds and my father's will. Documents I had never seen before that I thought were stored at our family lawyer's office. Sitting on my bed, hands trembling, I read through the papers. According to the will dated just 2 months before Dad died, the house had been left directly to me, not to my mother, as I had always believed. There were stipulations about allowing Mom to live there, but legally the property was mine. Dad had also left me a significant life insurance policy and investment account I had never been told about. The implications hit me like a physical blow. These documents should not have been hidden in my room. They should have been presented to me after Dad's death. Someone had deliberately kept me in the dark about my inheritance. When Mom returned home, I confronted her privately, documents in hand. Her face paled, then flushed with guilt. "Where did you find those?" she asked, reaching for the papers. I stepped back, keeping them out of her reach. "In my room, where someone had hidden them after breaking in." Why was I never told about Dad's will? Why did you let me believe the house was yours? Mom sank into a chair, suddenly looking older, defeated. "Walter thought it would be best if you did not know right away. He said it would just complicate things during a difficult time. Walter decided to hide my inheritance from me. And you went along with it? You have to understand, Heather. After your father died, I was lost. Walter helped me make sense of everything. He said since you were doing so well on your own, we could wait to tell you about the house. Then we got married, and it seemed like the right decision to keep things as they were. We are family now. What is mine is Walter's estate." The betrayal cut deeper than anything that had come before. My own mother had conspired to hide my inheritance, to effectively steal my property at the suggestion of a man she had known less than a year. "Did Dad know?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Did he know you would ignore his wishes?" Mom could not meet my eyes. "Your father and I had different ideas about financial matters. He was always so concerned about providing for you, making sure you had security. And you decided to undo that, to take away what he wanted me to have." "I did not take anything. You moved back in, did not you? You are living here. We are all living here as a family." The word family had become a weapon, a tool to manipulate and control. I refused to let it work anymore. "I need time to process this," I said, gathering the documents. "And I will be speaking to Dad's lawyer." The next few days brought an escalation in tensions. Jessica, seemingly oblivious to the serious breach of trust that had occurred, increased her demands. She announced at breakfast that she needed to borrow my car for a weekend trip to a music festival with friends. My car is not available, I said firmly, not looking up from my coffee. But all my friends are counting on me to drive. My car is too small for everyone, she whined, looking to Walter and Mom for support. Walter cleared his throat. Heather, Jessica's friends, have already bought their tickets. It would be a simple gesture of goodwill to loan her your car for the weekend. In fact, it might make sense to add Jessica to your insurance so these situations are easier in the future. I set down my cup carefully, fighting to keep my voice level. My car is not a shared family resource. The last time Jessica borrowed it, it came back damaged, and no one helped with the repair costs as promised. That was months ago, Mom interjected. Can you not move past that? Stop being so difficult. Setting boundaries is not being difficult, I replied. And no, Jessica cannot be added to my insurance. That would increase my premiums significantly. We would help with the additional cost Walter offered, though previous promises of financial help had never materialized. The answer is still no. The argument might have escalated further, but I had a work call and excused myself. Later that day, I overheard Jessica on the phone with a friend saying, "Yeah, I will pick you up in the Tesla. My sister's being weird about it, but she will get over it." My sister, as if saying it made it true, as if living in the same house created an automatic right to my possessions. Even more disturbing was a conversation I accidentally overheard between Walter and Jessica that evening. I was working late in my room when they passed in the hallway, not realizing my door was slightly ajar. "Just be patient," Walter was saying. "I have it all under control. Soon everything will be ours anyway." "But I need a car now," Jessica replied, "and she is so stingy with hers." "We will get you your own car soon enough. Once the house situation is settled, we will have plenty of options." The house situation. The phrasing sent a chill through me. They were planning something involving my house. The property I had only just discovered was legally mine. The next day, I took the property documents to my father's lawyer, Mr. Greenberg. He was shocked to learn I had only just discovered the will's contents. "This should have been presented to you immediately after your father's death," he explained. Michael was very clear about his wishes. "The house is yours with provisions allowing your mother lifetime residency rights provided she does not remarry. Upon remarriage, the expectation was that she would either pay you fair market rent or relocate." "She remarried almost 2 years ago," I said quietly. Mr. Greenberg nodded gravely. "Then legally, she should have been paying you rent since that time or made arrangements to move. Your father was concerned about protecting your inheritance. He mentioned worries that your mother might be financially vulnerable after his death, potentially to people who might not have her best interests at heart." The revelation stunned me. Dad had foreseen this situation, had tried to protect both Mom and me from exactly what was happening now, and his wishes had been deliberately circumvented. "What are my options?" I asked. "As the legal owner, you have several. We can send formal notice regarding the rental situation, initiate eviction proceedings if necessary, or negotiate a timeline for them to relocate. I would need to know more about your desired outcome." I left the meeting with a clearer understanding of my legal position, but more conflicted than ever about how to proceed. I loved my mother despite her betrayal. I did not want to make her homeless. But I also could not continue living under the same roof with people who had deliberately deceived me and showed such disrespect for my boundaries. That night, I began making a contingency plan. I researched apartments, spoke with friends about temporary housing options, and started cataloging which items in the house were indisputably mine. I did not know exactly what action I would take yet, but I knew I needed to be prepared for whatever came next. What I did not anticipate was how quickly the situation would explode, or that a bowl of soup would become the catalyst for the final breaking point in my relationship with my mother. Sunday family dinners had become a tradition in our house, even as the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Mom insisted on maintaining the facade of family harmony, preparing elaborate meals where we all sat around the dining table pretending everything was fine. That particular Sunday, she had made her special potato leek soup, a recipe passed down from my grandmother that had once represented comfort and love. The meal began normally enough. Mom served the steaming soup in her best bowls, the ones Dad had given her for their 20th anniversary. Walter complimented the meal excessively, as he always did when he wanted something. Jessica texted under the table, barely acknowledging the food or conversation. Then, without preamble, Jessica looked up from her phone and announced, "I need to borrow your car next week, Heather. My friends and I are going to Miami for spring break." The request was so presumptuous, so devoid of any recognition of our previous conflicts over the car, that I almost laughed. "No, Jessica, that is not going to happen." "Come on," she pressed, as if my refusal was merely an opening position in a negotiation. "It is spring break and everyone is counting on me. I need the Tesla because it has the best navigation system and the most space." "You can rent a car," I suggested calmly. "There are plenty of options for your trip." Jessica's face hardened. "Rental companies charge extra for drivers under 25. It would cost a fortune." "That is not my problem," I replied, taking a spoonful of soup. "The answer is no." Walter set down his spoon with a clatter. "Heather, you are being unreasonable. Jessica is offering to pay for gas. This is what families do for each other." "Walter, with all due respect, this is not about being family. My car is not communal property. Jessica has damaged it before, and no one helped with the repair costs despite promises to do so." "That is ancient history," Walter dismissed with a wave of his hand. "You make good money. The repair was nothing to you." "It was $1,200, I corrected. "And the principle matters. When you borrow something and damage it, you take responsibility." Jessica rolled her eyes dramatically. "God, you are so uptight about your precious car, and I also need to use your credit card for the trip, just temporarily until Dad transfers money to my account." The audacity was breathtaking. "Absolutely not. You are not using my credit card under any circumstances." Walter's face reddened. "Now see here, young lady. You live in this house rent-free. The least you could do is help out your sister when she needs it." The irony of his statement, given what I now knew about the house ownership, might have been amusing in other circumstances. As it was, I struggled to maintain my composure. "First, Jessica is not my sister. Second, this is actually my house, not yours, Walter. And third, my financial resources are not available for Jessica's spring break trip." A heavy silence fell over the table. Mom's face had gone pale. She knew I had discovered the truth about the house. Walter recovered first. "What do you mean your house? This is your mother's house. Your father left it to her." "No, he did not," I said evenly. "Dad left the house to me with provisions for Mom to live here. Provisions that changed when she remarried. I have seen the will and confirmed everything with Dad's lawyer." Walter turned to Mom, his expression thunderous. "Linda, what is she talking about?" Mom's hands trembled as she gripped her napkin. "Michael did leave the house to Heather, but I did not think it mattered. We are family. What is mine is yours, what is yours is mine." You knew Walter's voice had dropped dangerously low. "All this time you knew the house was not yours to bring me into." "I did not think it mattered." Mom repeated, her voice small. "Heather would never put us out. She is my daughter." The daughter who will not even loan her car to help her sister Jessica interjected, seemingly missing the gravity of the revelation. So selfish. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. "Mom, we need to have a serious conversation about this situation. I understand you were grieving when Dad died, but hiding his will from me was wrong. And Walter, your comments about everything soon being yours make a lot more sense now." Walter's head snapped up. "What are you implying?" "I overheard you telling Jessica that soon everything would be yours. Were you planning to try to take my house? Is that why you convinced Mom to hide the will from me?" "How dare you!" Walter slammed his fist on the table, causing the soup bowls to rattle. "I have been nothing but generous welcoming you into our home." "My home," I corrected quietly. "A home I allowed you to live in, while you plotted behind my back." Mom's face had crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please, can we all calm down? Heather, surely we can work this out. Jessica just needs to borrow your car for 1 week. And maybe you could add her to your credit card temporarily just for emergencies." I could not believe what I was hearing. Even now, with the deception exposed, Mom was still prioritizing Jessica's spring break trip over the serious breach of trust. "No, Mom. My car and my credit are not available to Jessica. Not now, not ever. And we need to discuss new living arrangements going forward." Mom's expression changed then from pleading to angry. After everything I have done for you, I raised you, Heather. I sacrificed for you. And now you would throw me out of my own home because of some legal technicality. This is not about throwing you out. It is about honesty and respect. Dad wanted me to have this house and you hid that from me. You and Walter have been living here without contributing anything while Jessica takes my things without permission and damages what is mine. Walter stood up, looming over the table. You ungrateful little brat. Your mother deserves better than this from her own daughter. Stop it, Walter, I said, standing as well. This conversation is between my mother and me. You disrespect me in my own house, he snarled. It is not your house, I repeated firmly. And until everyone in this room can respect basic boundaries, I see no path forward for us living together. What happened next occurred so quickly, I had no time to react. Mom, who had been silently crying, suddenly grabbed her bowl of steaming hot soup and threw the contents directly into my face. The pain was immediate and shocking. The scalding liquid burned my skin, getting into my eyes, running down my neck and chest. I screamed, stumbling backward, hands flying to my face. Mom, I gasped through the pain. What are you doing? Through tears and burning eyes, I saw her standing there, empty bowl still in hand, expression horrified at her own actions. Walter looked stunned. Jessica was already filming with her phone, a small smile playing on her lips. I did not mean, Mom stammered, setting down the bowl with shaking hands. I grabbed a napkin, trying to wipe the scalding soup from my face and eyes. I need to get to a bathroom. As I rushed to the sink, I heard Walter's voice behind me. Now look what you have made your mother do, Heather. This is what happens when you push people too far. The victim blaming was the final straw. Even as I rinsed my burning face with cold water, I knew I could not stay another night in this house. Not with a mother who would physically hurt me for setting boundaries. Not with a man who would blame me for being assaulted. Not with a stepsister who would film my pain for social media. When I returned to the dining room, face red and beginning to blister, Mom was sobbing while Walter comforted her. The irony was not lost on me. I was the one physically injured, yet she was being consoled. I am so sorry, Heather, Mom cried when she saw me. I do not know what came over me. I would never hurt you deliberately. But she had hurt me deliberately. She had picked up that bowl with intention and thrown its contents at my face. No accident, no mistake, a choice. I think it is best if I leave, I said, my voice hoarse. Do not be dramatic, Walter cut in. Your mother said she is sorry. These things happen in families. No, Walter. Parents do not throw scalding soup at their adult children for refusing to loan their car. That is not normal family behavior. Mom stood up, reaching for me. Please do not go. We can work this out. Just let Jessica use your car for her trip. And maybe add her to your credit card. Then everything can go back to normal. I stepped back from her touch, unable to believe what I was hearing. Even now, after physically assaulting me, her priority was still Jessica's spring break plans. I will be moving out tonight, I said quietly. And since this is legally my house, we will need to discuss next steps for all of you as well. I suggest you start looking for a new place to live. You cannot throw us out, Walter shouted. We have rights. Yes, you do. You have the right to 30 days' notice, which I will provide formally through my lawyer. But I will not stay here tonight. Mom's face crumpled again. If you walk out that door, Heather, do not bother coming back. You choose your car and your credit cards over your family, then you are no daughter of mine. The words struck like physical blows, but I refused to show how deeply they hurt. I am choosing self-respect and safety, Mom. I am sorry you cannot see the difference. I went upstairs to my room, locked the door, and began packing essentials. My hands shook as I gathered clothes, important documents, and irreplaceable mementos. The pain from the burns was intensifying, but I focused on the task at hand. I could seek medical attention once I was safely away. As I packed, I heard Walter and Mom arguing downstairs, their voices rising and falling. I heard my name, accusations of ingratitude, Jessica's complaints about her ruined spring break plans. Not once did I hear concern about my injuries or recognition of how inappropriate Mom's actions had been. When I finally carried my bags downstairs, Mom was waiting by the door. Please do not do this, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. We can work it out. I hope we can, Mom, I said honestly. But not tonight. Not while my face is still burning from what you did. Where will you go? She asked. Somewhere safe was all I would tell her. As I loaded my car, I took one last look at the house that had once been my sanctuary, the home my father had wanted me to have. Now it represented betrayal, deception, and pain. But as I drove away, I felt not just grief, but also a flicker of something else: determination. I would not let Walter and Jessica take what was rightfully mine, and I would not let my mother's betrayal define me. With burns still stinging on my face and chest, I drove toward an uncertain future, but one in which I would stand up for myself and honor my father's wishes. What I did not know then was that the confrontation at the dinner table was just the beginning, and that my next steps would change all our lives forever. I drove straight to Lauren's apartment, my closest friend since college. One look at my reddened, blistering face, and she pulled me inside, immediately guiding me to her bathroom to apply burn cream and assess the damage. You need to go to the hospital, she insisted, gently dabbing my cheeks with a cool cloth. These are second-degree burns, Heather. They could scar if not treated properly. I winced at both the pain and the thought. I cannot believe she did this, Lauren, my own mother. Neither can I, Lauren replied, her voice tight with anger on my behalf. And you said she was more concerned about Jessica using your car than about hurting you. She apologized, but in the same breath asked me to give Jessica my car keys and credit card, as if that would make everything okay. Lauren insisted on driving me to the emergency room where the staff documented and treated the burns. The doctor asked pointed questions about how I had been injured, his expression darkening when I explained. This is assault, he said simply. Would you like us to file a police report? The thought of pressing charges against my own mother made my stomach churn. Despite everything, I could not bring myself to take that step. No, I said finally, but I appreciate the documentation. Lauren let me stay in her spare bedroom, bringing me tea and sitting with me as I finally allowed myself to break down. The physical pain was significant, but the emotional devastation was overwhelming. I cried for the mother I had lost long before the soup incident, for the sanctity of home that had been violated, for my father whose wishes had been disregarded. What are you going to do now? Lauren asked, when my tears finally subsided. I do not know, I admitted. I cannot go back there, but I cannot just abandon the house either. It was Dad's gift to me. You should talk to a lawyer, Lauren suggested. Find out exactly what your rights are. The next morning, still in considerable pain, I called Mr. Greenberg and arranged an emergency meeting. He was horrified by the visible burns on my face when I arrived at his office. This changes things significantly, he said after hearing my account of the incident. Assault elevates the urgency of resolving the living situation. Mr. Greenberg confirmed what I already knew: as the legal owner of the house, I had every right to reclaim it. He also revealed additional information that stunned me. Your father left specific instructions and funds in a separate account for your mother's housing needs post-remarriage. There is money set aside specifically to help her transition to a new living arrangement if she chose to remarry. She was informed of this provision. She knew there was money available and still hid everything from me. The betrayal cut deeper with each new revelation. I am afraid so. And there's more. Mr. Greenberg pulled out a folder. When you mentioned Walter's name, something seemed familiar. I had my assistant do some research. The folder contained printouts of news articles and court records. Walter had been involved in 2 previous divorces, both following suspiciously similar patterns. He had married women shortly after they were widowed or divorced, moved into their homes, and gradually gained control of their assets. In one case, he had been sued by the adult children of his second wife for undue influence and financial exploitation, though the case had been settled out of court. He is a predator, I whispered, the pieces falling into place. He targeted Mom when she was vulnerable after Dad died. It appears that way, Mr. Greenberg agreed grimly, which makes reclaiming your property not just a matter of asserting your rights, but potentially protecting your mother from further exploitation. Over the next few days, Lauren helped me develop a strategic plan. I took a week of emergency leave from work, using the visible burns on my face as justification. I met with a property manager who specialized in difficult situations and hired a security company to change locks and install cameras once the house was vacant. I also consulted with a professional moving company about removing my possessions and furniture that had belonged to my father. The movers assured me they could work quickly and efficiently when the time came. The most difficult decision was whether to press charges against my mother for the assault. After much soul-searching and conversations with Lauren, I decided against it. Despite everything I hoped that once separated from Walter's influence, Mom might recognize what she had done and seek reconciliation. I wanted to leave that door open, however slightly. "But you are documenting everything right," Lauren pressed. "The Burns, the hidden will, Walter's history. Everything," I confirmed. "Mr. Greenberg is keeping copies of all the medical reports and photographs of my injuries." A week after the soup incident, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail, not yet ready to speak with her directly. Her message was a mixture of apology and justification. "Heather, please come home. I am so sorry about what happened. I just lost my temper. You know I would never hurt you intentionally. Walter says we can all sit down and work out a compromise about the house and your car. Jessica is really upset about missing her trip. Please call me back." Not a word about my injuries. No acknowledgement of the fundamental breach of trust. Just another attempt to negotiate access to my resources for Jessica's benefit. I did not return the call. Instead, I waited and watched from a distance. Through social media and mutual friends, I learned that Walter, Mom, and Jessica were planning a weekend trip to visit Walter's brother in another state. They would be gone from Friday morning until late Sunday night. It was the opportunity I needed. I scheduled the movers for early Friday, arranged for the locksmith and security team to arrive by noon, and contacted my lawyer to have formal eviction notices prepared. I would not do anything illegal, but I would exercise my legal rights as the property owner. "Are you sure about this?" Lauren asked, the night before the plan was to be executed. "It is going to burn bridges with your mom." I touched the still healing burns on my face, the skin red and tender. "Mom threw scalding soup at me, Lauren. She already burned the bridge. I am just acknowledging it is gone." As I prepared for what would be a difficult day of reclaiming my father's legacy, I found myself reflecting on the happy memories of growing up in that house. Dad teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway. Mom baking cookies in the kitchen while I did homework at the counter. Family game nights by the fireplace. Those memories would always be mine, regardless of what happened to the physical structure. And perhaps someday, when the wounds, both physical and emotional, had healed, new memories could be made with my mother. But first, I needed to reclaim what was rightfully mine and establish boundaries that even Mom could not cross. The eve of execution day, I slept fitfully, dreaming of soup that burned like acid and a house that kept changing shape as I tried to enter it. But beneath the anxiety was a growing sense of resolve. Tomorrow would be difficult, but it would also be the first step toward healing and reclaiming my life from those who had tried to take it from me. Friday morning dawned clear and cold. I arrived at the house at 6:30 a.m., 2 hours before the movers were scheduled to appear. The driveway was empty. Walter, Mom, and Jessica had departed for their weekend trip as planned. Standing in front of the home where I had grown up, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: sadness, resolve, and a quiet determination to reclaim what was mine. I let myself in with my key for what I knew might be the last time with the current locks. The house was eerily quiet, dishes still in the sink from a hasty breakfast before their departure. On the refrigerator, a family photo from Christmas mocked me with its facade of happy blending. My face in the picture showed strain I had been trying to hide, while Jessica beamed possessively from between Walter and my mother. I methodically walked through each room, taking inventory and photographs to document the state of the house before I began removing anything. In my father's study, now colonized by Walter's golf trophies and business books, I paused to touch the desk where Dad had taught me to balance a checkbook and explain the importance of saving for the future. "I am doing this for both of us, Dad," I whispered to the empty room. "I will not let them take what you worked so hard to build." The movers arrived precisely at 8:30. A team of 6 efficient professionals who listened carefully as I explained the situation in neutral terms. "We are clearing out specific items that belong to me or my late father," I told the crew leader, handing him the detailed inventory list I had prepared. "Everything else stays untouched." The team worked with impressive efficiency. They carefully wrapped and packed my father's antique desk, the bookshelves he had built by hand, and the grandfather clock that had been in his family for generations. They boxed my personal belongings from my bedroom and bathroom, the kitchen equipment I had purchased, and the artwork my father and I had collected together. As items were removed, I checked them against my inventory, photographing empty spaces where furniture had stood, and making notes about the condition of the house. I was determined to be meticulous to give Walter no grounds to claim damage or improper removal. By 11 o'clock, the moving truck was filled with my possessions, approximately half the furniture in the house. What remained was primarily items Mom had brought into her marriage with Dad, things Walter and Jessica had added, and basic household furniture I had no sentimental attachment to. The property manager arrived at 11:30, a no-nonsense woman named Rita, who specialized in managing properties with complicated tenant situations. "So they do not know they are being evicted?" she asked bluntly as we walked through the now half-empty house. "They know the house is legally mine, and that I expect them to move out," I clarified. "This is just formalizing the timeline and expectations." Rita nodded approvingly. "Smart to do this while they are away. Less chance of confrontation. The locksmith is on his way, and the security team will be here by 1 to install the cameras." By noon, the locksmith had changed every external lock and provided me with the only set of keys which I would transfer to Rita once the security system was in place. The movers had departed with my possessions, headed for a storage facility where I would sort through everything once I found a permanent new home. The security team arrived, promptly installing discreet but visible cameras at entry points and setting up a system that would alert both Rita and me to any attempts at forced entry. They were thorough and professional, explaining each component of the system and ensuring I understood how to access the feeds remotely. "What about their personal belongings?" Rita asked as we did a final walkthrough. "You said they will be returning Sunday night." "Everything of theirs has been left exactly where it was," I assured her. "The only items removed were things that indisputably belonged to me or my father." But there was one more task to complete. Working with Rita and a junior associate from Mr. Greenberg's office who had arrived to serve as a witness, I inventoried the items Walter and Jessica had brought into the house. These were carefully packed into labeled boxes and placed in the garage, easily accessible but clearly separated from the house itself. The formal eviction notice gives them 30 days, the legal associate reminded me as he placed the documents prominently on the kitchen table. But given the circumstances, Mr. Greenberg thinks they will likely leave much sooner. "I hope so," I said quietly. "I do not want this to drag out any longer than necessary." By 4 o'clock, the transformation was complete. The house stood half-empty, locks, changed cameras monitoring all entrances, and formal legal notices awaiting discovery on the kitchen table. Rita would return on Sunday evening to serve as property manager during what would likely be a volatile confrontation. As I prepared to leave, I found myself drawn to the backyard one last time. The old oak tree where Dad had hung a swing for me still stood strong against the late afternoon sun. I touched its rough bark, remembering how he had taught me to climb its lower branches, always staying close to catch me if I fell. "I miss you, Dad," I said softly. "I am sorry it came to this." I spent the weekend in a state of anxious anticipation, staying at Lauren's apartment and trying to distract myself with work and streaming shows neither of us really watched. The security cameras sent alerts to my phone whenever there was movement near the house, mostly just neighborhood cats, and the occasional delivery person leaving packages that would remain unclaimed until Sunday. "Are you sure you want to be there when they return?" Lauren asked Sunday morning over coffee. "You could let the property manager handle it." I shook my head firmly. "I need to see this through. I need them to understand that I am serious and that actions have consequences." "Just promise me you will stay safe," Lauren insisted. "If your mother was willing to throw hot soup at you once, who knows what she might do when she sees the house?" I touched the healing burns on my face, a physical reminder of why this confrontation was necessary. "Rita will be there and we will have the security team on standby. I will be careful." Sunday evening, I parked my car a discreet distance down the street and waited with Rita in her SUV. At precisely 7:45 p.m., Walter's sedan turned into the driveway. Through the car windows, I could see all three of them looking relaxed after their weekend away, unaware of what awaited them inside. Rita and I gave them 5 minutes to enter the house and discover the changes before we approached. Even from outside, I could hear Walter's enraged shouting as they discovered the half-empty rooms and the legal papers on the kitchen table. When we knocked on the door, it flew open to reveal Walter's flushed, angry face. Behind him, Mom stood pale and shocked, while Jessica filmed everything on her phone. "What the hell have you done?" Walter demanded, blocking the doorway. "Where's our furniture? How did you get in here?" "This is my house, Walter," I replied calmly. "I have removed my possessions and changed the locks, as is my legal right as the property owner. This is Rita Palmer, the property manager who will be overseeing the transition." "You cannot just throw us out," Walter sputtered. "We live here." "The eviction notice on the table gives you 30 days to vacate," Rita interjected professionally. "All of your personal belongings have been inventoried and packed for your convenience. They are in the garage, fully accessible to you." Mom pushed past Walter to stand in front of me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Heather, how could you do this? Where are we supposed to go?" For a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. This was my mother, the woman who had bandaged my scraped knees and cheered at my graduations. But then my gaze fell on Jessica, still filming with a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth, and I remembered the searing pain of the soup, the dismissal of my boundaries, the hidden will. "There are funds set aside by Dad specifically to help you transition to new housing after remarriage." I informed her, keeping my voice steady. "Mr. Greenberg has all the details. He will be contacting you tomorrow to arrange the transfer of those funds." "This is illegal," Walter shouted, pulling out his phone. "I am calling the police." "Please do," Rita replied calmly. "I have copies of the deed showing Miss Reynolds as the legal owner, as well as documentation of the assault that precipitated this action. The police will simply confirm that this is a civil matter being handled through proper legal channels." Walter's face reddened further, but he lowered the phone slightly. "You think you are so clever doing this while we were away, like a thief in the night." "No, Walter. The thief is the person who convinced my mother to hide my inheritance from me. The thief is the person who has a history of targeting vulnerable widows for their assets." His expression changed from anger to wariness. "What are you talking about?" "We know about your previous marriages, Walter. Your pattern of finding grieving widows, moving into their homes, and gradually taking control of their finances. It ends here." Mom's face had gone from shocked to confused. "What is she talking about, Walter?" Walter waved dismissively. "Lies and slander. She is just trying to justify stealing our home." "My home," I corrected firmly, "and everything I have done is legal and documented. You have 30 days to find new accommodations. Any attempts to damage the property or remove items not belonging to you will result in immediate legal action." Jessica finally lowered her phone, the reality of the situation apparently sinking in. "Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? All my stuff is in boxes." "Your personal belongings are packed and labeled in the garage," Rita explained. "You are welcome to continue using your bedroom for the next 30 days, but I will be conducting regular inspections to ensure no damage occurs to the property." "This is not over," Walter threatened, his voice low. "You will regret this, Heather." "The only thing I regret," I replied evenly, "is not discovering Dad's will sooner. Goodbye, Walter. Mom, Mr. Greenberg will contact you tomorrow about the transition funds." As Rita and I turned to leave, Mom called after me, her voice breaking. "Heather, please, we can work this out. Do not do this to your family." I paused but did not turn around. "You chose your family, Mom, when you threw that soup at me. I am just respecting your choice." Walking away was one of the hardest things I had ever done, but with each step I felt a growing sense of reclaiming my power. Behind me, I left a house half empty of possessions but finally cleared of deception. Ahead lay an uncertain future, but one in which I would set the terms and boundaries of my relationships. What none of us knew then was how quickly things would unravel for Walter once his past was fully exposed, or how this confrontation would ultimately lead to an unexpected path toward healing between my mother and me. The days following the confrontation were a whirlwind of legal communications and emotional processing. Walter, true to form, immediately threatened a lawsuit claiming wrongful eviction and theft of property. Mr. Greenberg calmly responded with documentation of my ownership, photographs of the carefully inventoried and packed belongings, and a pointed reminder about the assault that had precipitated my actions. "He has no legal ground to stand on," Mr. Greenberg assured me during our follow-up meeting. "His threats are exactly that, just threats. He knows pursuing this would only expose his own questionable history. Walter's past was rapidly catching up with him. Once Mr. Greenberg contacted the children of Walter's second wife to verify details of their previous legal action, word spread quickly. It turned out Walter had left a trail of financial manipulation across 3 states, always targeting vulnerable women shortly after they lost their partners. Jessica, meanwhile, launched a vicious social media campaign against me, posting edited clips from the confrontation and claiming I had heartlessly thrown her and her father out on the street. Her followers were initially sympathetic until Lauren and several of my other friends began commenting with the full story, including photographs of my burned face and documentation of the property ownership. The tide of public opinion turned quickly. Jessica's posts were taken down within days, but not before they had backfired spectacularly. Several of Walter's former stepdaughters found the posts and reached out to me, sharing disturbingly similar stories of his manipulative behavior and financial exploitation. Through all this, I heard nothing directly from my mother. Mr. Greenberg informed me she had accessed the transition funds my father had set aside, but she had not responded to my one attempt to reach out via email. I tried to focus on rebuilding my own life, finding a small but comfortable apartment closer to my office and slowly unpacking the possessions that carried positive memories. Then, 3 weeks after the eviction, I received an unexpected text from Mom. "Can we meet alone, please?" We arranged to meet at a neutral coffee shop. I arrived early, choosing a table in the corner that offered privacy without isolation. When Mom walked in, I barely recognized her. She had lost weight, and the confident posture I remembered from my childhood had returned, replacing the diminished stance she had adopted around Walter. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, settling across from me. She looked at the fading burns on my face, wincing visibly. "Heather, I am so deeply sorry for what I did to you. There is no excuse, no justification. I betrayed you in the worst possible way." The directness of her apology caught me off guard. I had prepared for defensiveness or attempts to share blame. "What happened with Walter?" I asked, not yet ready to accept or reject her apology. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. "He is gone. I asked him to leave after I learned more about his past. The women you connected me with his former stepdaughters, they told me everything. The patterns, the manipulation, how he isolated them from their mothers. It was like hearing my own story told by strangers. And Jessica. She went with him, of course. But even that relationship has soured. She blames him for losing the house, the lifestyle she thought she was entitled to." Mom paused, gathering herself. "I was such a fool, Heather. So desperate not to be alone after your father died that I let a predator into our lives. He was good at what he did," I acknowledged. "He targeted you when you were vulnerable." "That is no excuse for what I did to you," Mom insisted. "Hiding your inheritance, dismissing your boundaries, and then," she gestured toward my face, unable to say the words, "I became someone I do not recognize, someone your father would have been ashamed of." The mention of Dad brought a lump to my throat. He tried to protect both of us, the separate funds for housing the provisions in his will. He foresaw something like this might happen. "He always was the wiser one," Mom said with a sad smile. "I should have trusted his judgment instead of letting Walter convince me to hide the truth from you." We talked for nearly 3 hours, working through layers of hurt, betrayal, and grief that had accumulated not just since the soup incident, but since Dad's death. Mom explained how Walter had gradually isolated her, undermining her confidence and independence in such subtle ways she had not recognized the manipulation until it was too late. "I am not asking for forgiveness right now," she said, as our meeting drew to a close. "I know I have to earn that. But I want you to know I am getting help. Therapy twice a week and a support group for people who have been in manipulative relationships. I am glad to hear that I said sincerely. I have been seeing someone too, processing everything. Can we try again? Not living together, obviously. But maybe a phone call now and then, a text." The hope in her voice was fragile but genuine. "Small steps," I agreed cautiously. "It will take time to rebuild trust." Over the following months, those small steps gradually accumulated. Weekly coffee meetings became dinner every other Sunday. Mom found a small apartment of her own and began rebuilding her teaching career, which had languished during her time with Walter. I sold the house unable to separate it from the painful memories of betrayal and used part of the proceeds to establish a fund for victims of financial exploitation. Walter made one last attempt at intimidation, showing up at my workplace to make vague threats about making me pay for what I had done to him. Security escorted him out and a restraining order quickly followed. We later learned he had moved to another state, presumably to find his next target, but the network of former stepdaughters and their mothers had begun actively warning communities about his tactics. Jessica eventually reached out with a half-hearted apology, clearly motivated more by her need for financial support than genuine remorse. I wished her well but maintained firm boundaries, declining her subsequent requests to borrow money or stay with me just until she found a job. The healing process with Mom was neither quick nor linear. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns threatened to re-emerge, conversations that ended in tears or temporary silence. But there was also genuine effort on both sides, a willingness to do the difficult work of rebuilding a relationship on healthier foundations. On the one-year anniversary of the soup incident, Mom and I met for dinner at a restaurant we had both always loved. The burns on my face had faded to almost nothing visible, only if you knew exactly where to look. The emotional scars were healing too, though, more slowly. "I have something for you, Mom," said, sliding a small package across the table. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a shield. "It is a protection symbol," Mom explained. "Not that you need protection from me anymore, but as a reminder that you had the strength to protect yourself when I failed to protect you. I am so proud of the woman you have become, Heather. Your father would be too." I fastened the necklace around my throat, touched by the symbolism. "We have both come a long way." "We have," she agreed. "Though I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did." "It is not about making up for the past," I told her. "It is about building something better for the future, something based on respect and healthy boundaries." As we finished our meal and parted with a genuine hug, I reflected on the journey of the past year. I had lost a house but reclaimed my sense of self-worth. I had been betrayed by family but discovered the strength of true friendship. I had experienced the pain of having scalding soup thrown in my face but found the courage to stand up for myself in ways that would have been unimaginable before. The greatest lesson I learned through all of this was that real family is not defined by blood or legal ties, but by respect, honesty, and the willingness to honor each other's boundaries. Sometimes, protecting yourself means walking away even from people you love. And sometimes, if you are fortunate, it creates the possibility of building something new and healthier from the ashes of what was lost. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who crossed your boundaries? How did you balance self-protection with compassion? Share your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and personal growth. And remember, sometimes the most important relationship to protect is the one you have with yourself. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength on your own journey toward healthy relationships and self-respect.